What's going on, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome to episode 26 of Tuffy Talk. Thank y'all so much again for tuning in with us. Today, we're going to be working with Dan Siegel from ACC Content, and we're going to be talking about, we're going to be doing our skit called Extend or Descend with ACC Basketball Coaches. We did this a couple episodes ago for football coaches, but we're going to be doing it with Dan today with basketball coaches. So definitely going to be a lot of fun. So with that being said, let's go and get this thing started. All right, Wolfpack Nation, thank you so much again for tuning in today. Really appreciate you coming on for the 26th episode. So once again, if you haven't already, please make sure to hit the subscribe button by hitting the button in the bottom right-hand corner. Please like this video, check out our other content, and follow us at Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter or Instagram. And before we get going, I want to take a second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout Eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need. Offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlands.com. So please make sure to go and check them out. So Dan, hope you're doing well today, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
very excited for this.
Yeah, no kidding. I know we were kind of talking a little bit before, and it seems like we both kind of have an even kind of mix between yes or no. So this should be definitely a lot of fun. So just in case for those who didn't see the episode that we did of Extend or Descend with the football coaches, so basically how this works is we're basically saying that for each coach, which is going to be the coach heading into this upcoming season, we're projecting if in 5 years we expect the coach to be around, or if there's going to be another coach coaching that team. And just a disclaimer that we're going to be doing for Duke, we are not doing Coach K, we're doing Scheyer. So just keep that in mind. So first of all, we want to start with Boston College. We're going to be trying to do this in alphabetical order. So starting off with Earl Grant. So Dan, give it to us first. What do you say for Earl?
I'm going to extend Grant. I think he'll be there in 5 years. Not that he's one of the top half coaches in the ACC if I were to rank them, but I have a little bit of faith in him. And I just think that Boston College, they don't really have too short of a leash with their coaches. Look at Steve Donahue, who got 4 years. Jim Christian got 7 years. So if Jim Christian gets 7, I think Earl Grant could get at least 5.
Yeah. Megan, what you got?
Yep, totally agree. If they gave Jim Christian that many years, as bad as he was, this guy certainly has got a pretty long leash, I think. There's no expectation at Boston College.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing about Boston College is they actually, in recent years with Jim Christian, have done well in recruiting North Carolina. I think that's the only real success I think they've seen. Can't remember the guys' names, but they got a couple guys who were drafted. One guy was drafted, is on a Clippers roster right now from North Carolina. But they have a long leash, so he'll probably, unless he just, I don't know how he can do much worse than the last two guys, but if he can do it, maybe he's gone sooner, but I don't think he is. I think he's here.
No. So yeah, I mean, basically he spent 7 years at the College of Charleston. One of the big things, which I know you were kind of mentioning, I'm making, that I think maybe was a little bit enticing to Boston College, is that College of Charleston was actually one of only 21 programs to have a player drafted in 2019 and 2020 NBA draft. So definitely shows not only the skill, but also to the development being there from that coaches from Coach Grant as well. So and obviously in Boston College, one of the biggest things I'm sure is a goal for them is making an NCAA tournament, and he actually did that in 2018 with College of Charleston. So again, I think that between those 2 points of being able to obviously make it to the tournament, and also to being able to develop talent to take them to the NBA, so which obviously will help with recruiting, are probably the 2 big main points for sure. And then also on top of that, actually in 2018, he actually also won the regular season and the postseason conference championship. So third thing, actually, let's add that.
I mean, it was a great hire. I mean, it's a great hire for him. It's going to be like a stepping stone job.
Mm-hmm.
He did it at mid-major. Let's see if he can do it at a high major school.
Yep.
And again, no pressure.
Nope.
There's no pressure at Boston College.
Nope, no pressure. So now moving on to Clemson, we're going to be talking about Brownell. Dan, hand off to you to start us off with him, my man.
I'll say yes to him as well. So 2 yeses to start. It seems that Clemson is content with what they've been doing the past however many years he's been there. I think he's been there, 8-9 years at this point. And they make the tournament every few years. There's no reason to think they'll change their philosophy. They're a football school, so moderate basketball success is fine. So I don't think Brownell will change. I don't think Clemson will change. So I'll say yes, he'll be there in 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think it's interesting with Clemson. That was one of my more interesting thoughts on who would be borderline. I'd be curious to know how many coaches have stayed. If this is it's his 8th year, how many coaches have stayed 13 years at one school for basketball? It's very few in football. And obviously then there's, the Hall of Fame coaches usually stay where they're at for a long time in basketball. Same with football too, but I think he stays. I think Clemson's trying to go the same route Florida State has with Leonard Hamilton, a guy who did not succeed very much early on. They just kept with it. He did, the last season or two, they've had ranked. They've been times during the season they've been ranked. And I think he's just trying to build on that. Do I think Clemson's a great program? No. But do I think they are on right now a seemingly upward trajectory from where they have been? Yes, I do. So I think he's going to end up being there for the next 5 years.
Well, and also too, actually, to give you guys a heads up, he's actually entering his 12th season at Clemson. So he's been
12th season.
12th season.
So he'll be year 17.
Yeah. So I mean, and so to kind of give you some of the stats, so his overall record is 201, 149. His ACC record is 95-99, so almost 500. And he actually just signed an extension. Actually, I think it was last year through 2024. So basically, the question is, will they extend him again? And the one thing which I will say, so he hasn't won any championships yet, no regular season, no postseason championships yet, but he did make it to Sweet 16 in 2018. And I think honestly, one thing which I actually just even thought about, which I haven't looked at the stats, but one probably the big thing is maybe will be important for Clemson is I know they've done well against South Carolina, which is their main rival. And I think that as long as they can continue to be competitive in the ACC, and then on top of that, stay ahead of South Carolina, because the last thing you want is your school right down the road to have a lip over you, then I think you see him sticking around and, seeing what he could do. Just like you said, I mean, Leonard Hamilton, he's been around for what, like 13, 15 years or something like that. And, now he's hitting his sweet spot. So maybe Brad will be hitting his sweet spot here coming up, who knows? So, for me, it's an extent. I think that we all have gotten yeses so far. So glad we're all on the same page so far. So now we're going to Duke's, Jon Scheyer, obviously not starting until the 2022 season, not this season, but next season as the full-time head coach, but they've already announced him as Coach K's replacement. So Dan, what you got? Extend or descend, my man?
I'm going to give my first descend for Scheyer. I think there's just an extraordinarily high expectation at Duke basketball, and there's a possibility he stays, but if we're talking like more than a 50% chance, less than a 50% chance, I'd say there's probably less than a 50% chance they just meets the super high criteria. It starts with recruiting, and I talked about it on my podcast. I'm not sure that he could recruit to the same level as Coach K. Now they have the resources, they have the Duke basketball brand name, but the level that Coach K was bringing in, multiple top 10 recruits in classes on several occasions, that's going to be difficult to replicate.
Yeah. I'm not thinking he's going to be there for 5 years. I think that Duke will give him the benefit of the doubt to some degree because they realize the shadow he's trying to merge out of. But I think it's more like a 3 to 4 year window for him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to be there for 5. So
yeah,
that's my thought. And then my thing was too, I was shocked that they hired Jon Scheyer. Maybe other people weren't, but I think they could have gotten anybody they wanted to. And I guess they did. They got their guy they wanted. I haven't heard any rumblings that they tried to get somebody else and they said no, because I can't imagine anybody doing that.
No.
So they wanted Jon Scheyer, or maybe they were grooming him. But I always thought it was going to be somebody else, not Woj. I mean, Wojciechowski, I thought, but then I thought he got fired from Marquette. So somebody else, the other guy from, is it not Northwestern? Somebody, I think it was that coach. The coach at Northwestern is the former Duke guy. But I think they let this guy go.
Yeah, well,
after 5 years.
Well, and I mean, it's funny to me because I was actually talking to my father-in-law about this, who's a Carolina fan, because I think it's funny how, even though Duke and Carolina are hated rivals, they pretty much copied each other in how they did their coaching searches. They pretty much said, "Hey, Roy, Coach K, who do you want?" And they both said, "The guy sitting on the bench right beside me." They both said that. They, pretty much their associate head coach or assistant head coach with Hubert Davis and Jon Scheyer, which, they could have gone and gotten anybody, honestly, and probably any coach would have said, yes, I would be glad to take on that opportunity. So, in my opinion, I kind of look at Scheyer and Huber, and which we'll talk about in a little bit, as kind of like the Dabo Sweeney-esque hire, where you're basically taking a shot and seeing if they work out. I mean, and hope, and you might hit a home run, or you might, get blocked, 100%. But again, I mean, you're talking about a guy who hasn't been a head coach yet. He didn't even get done playing as a player that long ago. And, so, here he is, and he actually was only hired as the Duke assistant in 2014. Then he got promoted to the associate head coach in 2018. So he's been around the Duke program for a long time. So, but, I think a lot of it is go ahead, Macon.
Sorry. No, I was going to say, I want to add this too. You could argue that during his time as associate head coach, they've not done as well.
Yeah, true. So, and I mean, again, so that's why, to me, I think that a lot of it's kind of out of respect of Coach K. They're asking him, who do you want? And he picked Jon Scheyer. But I put it as decent too. And by the way, too, as a disclaimer to everybody watching, we did not copy each other's notes. We have not seen each other's notes ahead of time. So even though we've all said yes and no for the same people so far, it's just by coincidence so far. So moving on to FSU's Leonard Hamilton. I think this is pretty much going to be easy run through for all of us. So Dan, I'll let you get started with the extends.
Well, despite the fact that he's 79 and he's basically ageless, like there's
Leonard Hamilton, 79
years old. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. He looks there's pictures of him from like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and he looks no different.
Wow. I didn't know that.
But the oldest coach, you know who the oldest coach is?
Boeheim. Gotta be.
Yeah. I was shocked because I thought it was Roy or Krzyzewski.
No, Boeheim.
Those two guys.
That's why you just assumed I was going to say extend, but I'm actually going to descend him. I think despite the fact that he's basically ageless and he doesn't let the fact of being 79 get in the way of him, I just don't see. I see maybe that kind of area of time when he finally decides to retire, because 84 still coaching. That's
yeah.
Sure.
Great point.
Well, but it's kind of interesting though too, because I mean, he's just over a couple years ago finally hit his prime with this school. So that's the thing is, I mean, he recruiting's been up, his competition's been up. He's going to be, hopefully going to win some more ACC titles, possibly in his future, and Sweet 16s, Elite 8. So I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one for me. Sorry, Macon, go ahead, my man.
No, I was going to, honestly, I was going to say Sin, but I totally forgot he was 79.
Yeah.
That's a very, very good point. I wouldn't want to be working if I was 84 years old. So traveling every weekend or every week to go somewhere, I think he's probably. Having said that comment does change my mind. I imagine if he's got 2 or 3 years in him, maybe. And my question would be then, if that's the case, who do they hire afterwards? Because Florida State's not like a destination school. It is low pressure, so it's a great job place, so to speak. Like you could coach there for years, low pressure, and you've proven to be successful. But
that's how Norvell does with the football program too.
Yeah,
but Vanderbilt. We don't want to talk about Vanderbilt. Did you say Vanderbilt?
I said it depends. Norvell. It depends how well Norvell does with the football program.
Yeah.
As far as how high the pressure is to get the basketball program to be successful.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm going to go against the grain and say extend, just because I mean, over the last 3 years, he's gone 13-5, 16-4, and 11-4 in the ACC. I feel like they're hitting a stride right now. And I think I'm not necessarily going to say he's going to be around longer than that, but I'm going to, go the other direction and go extend just because, I mean, they're hot right now. They're one of the hottest teams they see right now. So, yeah. So now we're going to be moving into Georgia Tech, Josh Pastner. So Dan, get us started, my friend.
This one I think is a pretty easy extend for me. He's much younger than Hamilton. They are certainly on the upswing as a program. He's a pretty young guy, bringing a lot of excitement. Georgia Tech fans are pleased. I mean, they technically did win the ACC championship last year. You could say whatever you want about it. They technically did win it. So regardless, he's doing very good things with the program and producing potentially NBA players. I don't think Alvarado has much of an NBA future, but Moses Wright may be able to sneak in there, be a role player. So definitely good things at Georgia Tech. Pastner extending.
Yeah. Go ahead, Macon.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they're going to extend him. My question would be, because he had all that NCAA junk following him around when he was there. I think it followed him from Memphis is where he was before. That's the only caveat with him being a decent, because I don't know if Georgia Tech would put up too much with, lawsuits and whatever kind of charges he had to come that were accusations, I should say, against him. So I'm going to say extend with that asterisk there. But like you said, he won the ACC title. Georgia Tech hasn't won in forever. So yeah. No, I mean, it's an easy extent for me too. I mean, the guy's only 43 years old. And actually I was taking a look. And so his first 3 seasons, they had losing records in the ACC. The last 2 seasons, he went 11-9, 11-6. So, I mean, you see the improvement. The only thing, which is kind of the nervousness for me, just like you were saying, is with the NCAA, but also too, on top of that, so before Georgia Tech, he was actually at Memphis, which, predominantly for the most part is a pretty proud basketball program for the most part, not necessarily recently, but overall throughout their history. And when he was head coach there, he never made it past the round of 32 in the NCAA tournament, which is like, just kind of curious. You kind of ask yourself, well, if it does work at Georgia Tech, why didn't it work at Memphis, kind of deal. But yeah, for me, extend. He's young, he's up and coming, he's bringing in good talent. So yeah, easy extent for me. So now moving on to Louisville with Chris Mack. Dan,
I'm going to extend him. 3rd year there. They've had moderate success. They didn't make the tournament last year, so if that keeps happening, then he'll be gone quickly at a program like Louisville. But I think he can turn things around. Has a pretty good resume. I think he's one of the, like I said, I alluded to this before. If we were to rank all the coaches in the conference, he would definitely be in the top half. So yeah, I think Chris Mack, I could somewhat confidently at least, say that he will be extended past 5 years.
Yeah.
Yep, I would agree. He's had a lot of success, particularly on. I think he's a heck of a coach. I do know there was a point. The one thing that had a caveat, there's a point back about maybe a year ago, maybe less than that, when he had gotten some hot water. I think it was maybe more recently from his players or something to the effect that he had said something or he had done something with the team that they thought was inappropriate to some degree. And I don't know if some players left or they were mad, but I think it was something along that effect. I can't recall. If there's any issues there, do I think he stays? Do I think issues are going to continue to rise? And I think they would let him go. But when he was at Xavier, he was one of the best coaches, period. And I think they extend him. I think he's, Louisville is a great destination, although they've got high demands. So in 5 years, is he where he was last year with Louisville? Though I don't think they're going to keep him around. But I do think, I think they're going to get their act together. I think they are. So if I had a bet, more likely than not, I'm betting on him as a coach. So I say they extend him.
Yeah. For me, I'm actually going to go different. I actually say descend, because of the fact that I think that, obviously we know with Louisville, there's a lot of pressure for basketball. I think it's one of those schools that, you actually think about, like, say jobs that have the most pressure, I would put it even in, top 3 or 4. I mean, there's a lot of pressure there just because they have to compete against Kentucky every year, which, they can't stand with all their heart. So the two big reasons is, I mean, obviously the NCAA stuff coming up recently, especially this past year. I know they had a lot of recruits, big time recruits that backed out and went to other schools. But also too, on top of that, the inconsistency. Like, I think you can look at, his 3 seasons, or, 2 or 3 seasons so far, and you see a lot of high points. Like at one point they were number 1 in the country, but you also see, like, just, they'll have some bad losses, just like you said, Dan. Last year they didn't make it to the tournament, which is not a good thing at all for any Louisville coach. And you even also got to look at, Duke's, when Duke had their huge comeback against Louisville when they were up by, like, 30 points, something like that, when Duke had Zion. And, because obviously, every, you can't necessarily base a coaching off of, one game, but you kind of look at that and you say, that's, not only obviously a team issue, but also too, that could have been a coaching issue as well. So I'm going to kind of go against the grain and between mostly the NCAA and then the inconsistency and the pressure of beating Kentucky. I'm going to say decent. So now moving on to Miami, Jim Larranaga, who is 71 years old. I do know that. So Dan, go ahead.
Pretty easy descend for me. I think I doubt the fact that he will be coaching till the age of 76, and B, he's like past his peak anyway. He's not doing great things at Miami. I know that they lost their best player for essentially the entire season last year, but that player is also transferred to Arkansas, that being Chris Likes. So,
ouch.
Yeah.
I say I think he's done. I think he's I think this time next year they're probably figuring out who they can get as a replacement. So decent.
Yeah. And because it's funny because he's actually only entering his 11th season at Miami. So he hasn't actually been in Miami for that long, for as old as he is. But so, I mean, like, so back in 2013, he won the AP Coach of the Year. He's a 2-time ACC Coach of the Year. But, kind of looking at, when he's, started versus kind of where he is now. So his first 2 years, he went 20-13 overall, 29-7 overall. But then the last 2, he went 15-16 overall and 10-17 overall. And in the last 2 seasons, he's only won 11 ACC games. So, I mean, it's just kind of one of those things that I feel like there's enough pressure from Miami overall to be a great athletic program that they are going to, just like Macon said, not necessarily like, fire him per se, but, kind of ask him to work his way out so they can kind of bring in somebody else per se.
And I love this too.
Go ahead.
Miami is still at the same time, it's a low pressure place to play basketball. I mean, they love their football. So it's just a low pressure. I would just be curious who wants to go coach Miami. It's not like it's a big draw. They got a small Coliseum there, and they don't really feel too much of it from what I have seen most of the time. And maybe it's somebody who wants to be in the ACC and live in Miami.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be curious to see who they would fill. But I think we all are in agreement.
Well, because it's a big potential. It's a big potential program. I mean, obviously with the fans of Miami, if Miami does take off, then basketball could take off with it. So sorry, Dan, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's not exactly the worst job in the conference.
No, I didn't say that. No. I'm just saying, I think it's kind of like a Florida State where it's like low pressure, kind of like a Clemson, low pressure, but you kind of overshadowed a little bit by football.
Yep.
But if you can, is it like, oh man, I got to get to Miami, I've got to get to Florida State compared to some other schools in the ACC? No, I don't think that's the way it is.
Mm-hmm. All right, so here we go. NC State, Kevin Keatts, Dan. All Wolfpack Nation is looking at you, my friend.
Okay, I'm actually going to say descend. So I will say that he has had a lot more success than I feel like the average ACC fan will realize, just because of what's happened recently. But I think like NC State is a program with historical expectation for success, and I think he is underwhelmed a little bit. So I think he could stay for 2, 3, 4 more years, but to bet on the fact that he'll be there for 5 more years, that's a lot. to say that he will.
Yeah.
So sometimes I agree with you. Short version is, I don't think he's going to be here in 5 years. He's not the guy Boo Corrigan, our AD, hired when he just started a year or two ago.
It's actually Debbie out hired him.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't.
Okay. When Boo came in.
I'm right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Boo. It's not Boo's hire.
I see.
It's not
I see
his
what
guy.
you mean. Okay.
So I think, we've had this discussion before. We've had a whole episode on Keatts, so go check it out, everybody. But I think his best season was his first season.
Yeah.
Now he's not had crappy seasons, but he's and again, I had this, I'm not going to get on this theory, but my whole point was he's had a lot of ranked wins, like in season ranked wins, particularly year 1 and year 2. He had like 5 or 6, like top, like for year 1, he had like 6 top 15 wins. And I was like, that's crazy. I've only heard Duke or Carolina, getting those. I don't hear anybody in the country really doing those kind of wins. And then he slowly descended. His problem, I think, is postseason success. If he could just get in the ACC tournament, in the NCAA tournament, and win a game, and I think he would be just fine. I think he'd be an ascent. But I think in fans' minds would be. But I think now it's like this sour taste of like, okay, buddy, your time's running out. You got to figure it out. And I think he's a great guy. I think he's I won't say I think he's a great recruiter. I think he gets the guys he wants. You can see his personality, I think, really draws people in. Very likable. But I will say this. I think last year, again, I've talked this about the conversation before. I think it was an asterisk, just like a lot of coaches have been too. Although State had 2 positives in COVID compared to most schools who may only have had 1 or 0. So it's hard to kind of say, but do I, with the way the talent is coming in the roster right now, the team right now, very athletic roster, and it's very young, inexperienced. And in addition, having said that, whenever we're going to probably get to the next team, talk about too, you have 2 Hall of Fame coaches in your backyard for 30 years who just retired, both of them. So if you're NC State, you are in win now mode. And if Keatts cannot do it, he is not the guy. It's this year. You better prove this year you can do it or you're done. And I think this is his last year, in my opinion. I think if he can't get it done, I think Boo cuts him personally. I just think it because this is our time to go get it, basically.
Well, because kind of for me, so it's kind of so. First of all, answer the question. I have him as an X10, but that's more just because I am betting on the that there's going to be an uptrend. Right now, you've kind of seen this consolidation where he's just kind of stayed there. He's had 12 losses, 11 losses. He's right there, and so eventually he's either going to take off or go down. But I do agree with you that I think that honestly, my opinion probably would have changed if Duke or UNC had hired somebody who we know of the caliber they could have hired. But now they've kind of hired 2 shots in the dark. I feel like that we kind of have that room because, I think that if they would have hired a Hall of Famer or, some big time coach, I would have said, man, we got to rely on, Coach Keatts, because the last thing we want to do is start all over again, and, start from the bottom, just like the rest of them. But, now I completely agree with you. I mean, I think that with especially this team that he has coming in where he does have a lot of pieces, and thank goodness Manny Bates is around, I do 100% agree with you. I think that this is going to be a big year. And if he doesn't, I think that just like what just happened with baseball, there's going to be a lot of State fans that are going to go all in and say, we need to bring in a big time basketball coach and not miss this opportunity here.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, but my thing, and I agree with you. I just think the cards are going to a little be stacked against him this season because most of his guys are really young. His best player is going to be Jericho Helms. That's who's going to be leading scorer. Going to be, and then Manny Bates is his best player on defense, and then Cam Hayes, and Darian Sebron, and Thomas Allen didn't do much. I don't know if it's going to get there. Hopefully it does, but I look at it this way. I think of NC State basketball in the same vein I think of Louisville basketball. Personally, that's the way I think of them. They are a school, as a They're a school who basically really values football and really values basketball. And I think at times they get kind of torn between the two. But Louisville, like you mentioned earlier, Leighton, has always seemed to live in Kentucky's shadow. And I think Carrot State has always lived of the upset, obviously, except for, up until like the early to mid 90s, has always lived in Duke and Carolina's shadow. And they have been fighting their fan bases. I mean, the Yum Center is an awesome arena, but the PNC arena is about to get a huge renovation. So it's a very, I think of it, it's a similar draw with a lot of pressure, though. Personally, that's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So so now we'll move on to the other school, like you mentioned, Macon. So UNC with Hubert. So Dan, hand it over to you, my man.
This was the most difficult one for me. I'm going to go against what I did with Scheyer. I'm actually going to extend him. I had very trouble with this one. I think there's really two things that happens. A, he lasts 2 to 3 seasons, does basically what Matt Doherty did, and he's gone. But I think if he does well enough, then he will stay long term. I don't think there's kind of the situation where he literally lasts exactly 5 or 6 more years, 5 or 6 years. So, but I do think that he will last. Like if I were to play the odds, I'm going to say that Hubert Davis will be there in 5 years. I think, yeah, that's going to be my take.
Okay. McGon, what you got?
I'm going to say decent. I think Hubert Davis is a class act guy. I know that's what everybody says. There's a stereotype calling him somebody a class act. I think he's an example of who players can look up to as a great role model that everybody likes. Nobody dislikes Hubert Davis.
No.
Just very kind, humble guy. Personally, I like the way how he talks about his faith. Personally, I think that's a different touch. You don't hear much from coaches. But I just looked it up. He's got a 5-year contract. So this will be year 1. One thing that's good for him is I know Armando Bacot just announced that he's coming back to Carolina. So that'll be his clear best player.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like with Jon Scheyer. I have a hard time understanding the Hubert Davis hire a little bit because Carolina could have gone and gotten anybody they wanted to. I don't know why they didn't hire the guy from UNCG. So I know he got hired at Cincinnati. And maybe they just thought, if people say, well, he's just too young. Well, if that's the case, then maybe him coaching in Cincinnati, he can just do what he did at UNCG, and then he ends up being the next guy at Carolina, which is personally what I think Carolina's keeping in their back pocket. But Carolina and Duke are like, they want the program guys or keep it in the family. And like I know Mike Krzyzewski, before this Jon Scheyer hire, he had said, the only guy I can see me coaching after, he said, the one guy I want to see coaching after me is Johnny Dawkins. John was years ago. People can look up John. I know some people who are about our age may not know who Johnny Dawkins is. Go look him up. He's a great player for Duke. But with the Hubert Davis hire, played for Carolina, just like Jon Scheyer, he's never coached anywhere as a head coach. You just don't know what you're getting. I think the analogy you made, Leighton, about Dabo Swinney is a good point. I think that's kind of what they're hoping. Maybe Jon Scheyer, maybe Hubert Davis is the next Dabo Swinney because he's been groomed by, Swinney was groomed by Nick Saban, and Hubert Davis was groomed by Roy Williams and Jon Scheyer. I just personally don't think it's going to last very long. I think it's
reward.
You what?
High risk, high reward.
Yeah, higher risk, higher reward. But do I have to bet? I think year 3 or 4, I think they're going to be like, okay, because Carolina is a machine, kind of like Duke is a machine, but Carolina, I think, thinks of themselves more of like a machine. Like they are like, we got to get with it and stay with it. And I think they're going to I think it's going to be a year 3 or 4. You're going to probably see some struggle maybe leading up to that. And I think They may let him ride out his contract, buy out his last year. I just think they're going to descend him. I don't think they're going to keep him around after 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I mean, so I'm kind of in the same with making that, and I do agree with you, Dan, that I mean, like I do think there's a decent chance that one of these guys, either Hubert or Scheyer, will work out. I just don't. Again, I think that the odds are is at less than 50% chance that they're around, just because. Again, go ahead.
I'm going to ask you this question. Well, you finish your point. And I'll ask the question. You go ahead.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, because he's been around Carolina for 9 years as an assistant. But again, I think that for me, it's like, for example, like UNC and Duke have two probably the biggest basketball alumni, right beside, Kentucky and some of the other guys, with NBA players and etc. And so one of the biggest things which I feel like you have to have is you have to have a guy that when these players come back, they're like proud, like, yeah, like, like that, that's my team, that's my coach, that's my guy. And I think that if you ask, if you brought back Kyrie, if you brought back, from UNC, you brought, Vince Carter or, Hansbrough, whatever it is, I just don't know if you get overly excited besides the personality wise, that's my head coach. You know what I mean? But again, there's shots in the dark, they could work out, they might not, but I'm just shocked that with a school with as much pressure and as much eyes on those two programs that they're going to bring in somebody where they're basically taking a shot instead of hiring somebody who's literally they could have probably gone to the coach of Gonzaga and even had a conversation. And I can guarantee you, he probably would have listened. He probably.
Brad Stevens. Well, you don't think Duke could have gone and asked Brad Stevens if he's struggling at Boston? I think that would have been pretty sweet hire. Would have made a lot. Something like that is what I thought Duke could have done.
Yeah.
But go get a guy who was excelled in the college game, went to the NBA, did all right, didn't do great at the end or the end, bring him back and just keep the Duke train pumping, because Stevens seems like a Duke guy to me. He just kind of has that vibe.
Yeah.
But I don't even know how that conversation went, if something like that even happened.
Yeah.
So
it's just shocking. It's just shocking again that literally with these two programs that they even have to consider or are now in the position or are now putting themselves in the position where they're taking a shot. That's shocking to me. So, Macon, what's your question, my man?
My question was interesting. I just thought of this. Who do you think does better, Jon Scheyer or Hubert Davis?
Go ahead, Dan.
I mean, we just know nothing about Hubert Davis.
Do we know anything about Jon Scheyer as a coach?
No.
Yeah.
So that's my point. We know literally nothing about them except they were coached by two Hall of Fame coaches.
The one thing I will say about Hubert Davis is he's more experienced around the game of basketball. I think I trust him slightly more.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think for me with Hubert, I think that I see him doing better from the player relations kind of sort. I know that Scheyer had a lot to do with the recruiting side for Duke, but I think for Duke, a lot of the recruiting side for Duke is just Duke being Duke and Coach K being Coach K, period. I don't think that really Scheyer all has to do is he has to just walk in the door and be like, I'm from Duke. And everybody's gonna be like, oh, I commit, it's that simple, So, but I think with Hubert, I see him doing a little bit better job from the player relations sort, but also too from the coaching of the game of basketball sort. But that's my guess. Would you agree, Macon, or would you actually go with Scheyer?
I don't know. I'm going to be indifferent. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with generally with your comments. I get the vibe that Hubert Davis is going to be like a player's coach. Hubert's going to be a guy that the players just want to run through a brick wall for and play their hearts out for. I'm going to be curious who he hires as a staff, like these guys hire as staff. I could see Jon Scheyer being more of like a cerebral kind of guy.
Yeah.
Knows the game, could scheme out some, really good stuff. I don't know how he is with players relation wise. If I had to bet, I'm going to bet that.
Yeah. Here.
Honestly, I'm going to probably bet that Jon Scheyer does better, because I think the cerebral mind is going to get somebody farther than maybe a personality would in terms of the game.
Yeah.
Which is maybe a bad take.
But
if I had to pick who I would prefer, I like Hubert Davis. I would want to see him succeed more, but then at the same time, I hate Carolina, I hate Duke, so I hope they both lose, kind of thing. But
and so here, guys, and if you guys are watching, please actually comment below who you think will do better, Scheyer or Hubert. All right, Wolfpack Nation. So this is actually a two-part series. We just finished two-part here. So sorry to cut you short, but again, make sure to check in next week as we're going to be rolling out the part 2 and finishing out the list of schools that we have. So again, please make sure again, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for us. Really would appreciate that as it helps support the channel. Please like this video, check our other content, follow us at Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter, Instagram, and thank you to our sponsors at Flatlands Jessup. Make sure to go check them out. All their information is in the video description below. So again, please make sure to tune in next week for part 2 as we go through extend or descend with Dan Siegel from ACC Content. Thank you all so much, and let's always go Pack.